to the Breeders' Cup. Presented by Buick.
It's Saratoga. It's the August place to be for the millionaires or the $2 bettors or the kids who just want to see the horses up close. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Johnson. And this, the summer capital of racing, is bracing for a possible shower and a showdown. We may see rain, and we may see a future Breeders' Cup champion. 5 Whitney winners have competed in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but none have won that mile-and-a-quarter event. Interestingly enough, 2 Whitney winners have gone on to win the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Lady Secret and Personal Ensign. And the horse that finished second to Personal Ensign, that was Gulch. He won the $1 million Breeders' Cup Sprint that year. So solid and fascinating ties to racing's big day. First, let's check the conditions for the Whitney. It's a handicap for 3-year-olds and up at 9 furlongs. That's once around the Saratoga Oval. It's a Grade I event carrying a purse of $350,000. Intermittent showers all day today, but not too heavy. A little overcast, but the weather, well, the temperature's still in the low 80s and not a sign of a breeze. Well, to meet the field for the Whitney Handicap, let's go to the man who'll call the race. Here's Tom Durkin.
Saratoga is known as the graveyard of favorites, and in 67 runnings of the Whitney, it has contributed quite a bit to that reputation, particularly back in 1973 when an unpretentious horse by the name of Onion beat the great Secretariat himself. Well, frankly, there are no Secretariats in this year's Whitney, but then again, it's not a bunch of onions either. Let's meet the field, shall we? Itaka, breaking from the rail, number 1, Siberian Summer, who is trained by white-hot trainer Gary Siaka and ridden by the Railbirds' favorite here, hustling Jorge Chavez. L'Carriere, who looked good winning here 2 weeks ago. Unaccounted For, who has run some extraordinary races and some ordinary races. Amathos, trained by Belmont, who has his champion Pro Tem cigar resting in the barn today. Key Contender, who at age 7 won the Grade I Suburban. He's the morning line favorite. Silver Fox, a bit of controversy here when trainer Tony Margada took Julie Crone off this week and put on Shane Sellers. And the ever-ready bunny of New York racing, Federal Funds, he just keeps on running and running and running today for the 106th time. And perhaps the best bred horse racing in the world today, our emblem by the brilliant sire, Mr. Prospector, out of the brilliant race mare, Personal Ensign. Well, this is a Whitney Handicap that came up a little light. Literally, the high weight here carries only 118 pounds.
And joining us now, Charles C. Canty. Well, Tom told us about the 9 who have accepted the weight assignment, but there were 22 original nominees, and when they doled out the weight there, it was a different story.
It was. The actual top weights were a pair of fillies, Heavenly Prize and Inside Information. Both of them are trained by Suge McGee. He decided not to run them here today against the boys, and we'll tell you later where they will be running. But Suge is starting our emblem, who is a beautifully bred colt, and he's improved a whole lot this year as a 4-year-old.
But, you know, when they run a Grade I here at Saratoga, you better check the chalkboard over at Barn 81 and see who Suge's revving up for the contest.
Suge is always a consistently powerful force, as you can see by these statistics here. Even if he's having an unusually moderate year for him, he'll pull it out at Saratoga, like in '90 when Rhythm won the Travers. And notice one of his Whitney winners there, Personal Ensign, who was, of course, a Breeders' Cup champion. She went undefeated in her career, and she is the dam of our emblem who runs today.
But that's one of the things we wanted to find out from Suge as to why he's starting our emblem here instead of one of the fillies from his barn, both of them at the top weights.
Well, I just thought there was a lot more at stake with him. The way he's bred, he's Grade I place. He's never won a stake, and if he could come down there and win the Whitney, it'd mean a whole lot to the value of him as a, stallion prospect. And with the fillies, I would love to run either one of them, but I would have hated for him to come down there and one of them win and he'd be second. And so I just sort of decided to put all my eggs in one barrel and take a shot with him.
Well, as you just saw, that was Light the Fuse that our emblem was chasing there in several sprint stakes. So he's got ability as a sprinter and a distance horse. So Suge's in a lovely dilemma. He doesn't know which way to go.
Charles, he'll figure it out because Suge's won 5 Breeders' Cup races in the past decade. 1995, he's on the road again, and so are we. Reason, not the season. And the reason to be here is the racing day after day, Especially the 2-year-olds in the turf encounter, simply the best. Even with umbrellas, it's the place to be. You know, for several years here in New York, Key Contender toiled in the silks of Paul Mellon's Rokeby stable under the care of Mac Miller. He earned nearly $500,000 in that time, and he was sold for $170,000 in a Belmont Park sale last fall as part of the Rokeby cutback of their racing stock. But Key Contender has continued to be just that. And today, he's the starting high weight for the Whitney.
The owner of Key Contender, Carl Lizza, is obviously pleased with his not quite over-the-hill purchase. And the new owner is quick to give credit to the former one for the horse's longevity.
You know, if you take a working man's life, and if every winter, you know, you went to Aiken, South Carolina, like Mr. Mellon treats his horses, this horse went to Aiken every November and didn't come back until May. So while he may be 6 on the clock, if you were to go over him with a vet and check him out, he's more like a 4-year-old. He's really, really a very, very sound horse.
Well, actually, now he's 7, but it's easy to forget age the way he's been performing. Key Contender did set track records at both Saratoga and Belmont for his previous connections, but didn't win his first stakes race until the Grade I Suburban at Belmont Park last month. But he's always been the definition of consistency.
When you look at his past performance before we bought him, every time they wheeled him over there, he was 5-2, 2-1, 8-5, and they were running him just a little below the Grade I stakes and Grade II. They were running him in top handicaps, and there's just a fine line between the two. And this horse is obviously, for us, it's been fortunate that he's gotten a little better with age. You know, they say that racehorses are not like good wine. They don't get better with age, but this particular horse is like good wine. He's gotten better with age, you know.
But like fine wine, horses are frequently judged by their year, and partially because of his competition, Key Contender hasn't been accorded the normal accolades given a Grade I winner in New York. And that bothers Carlos Martin, who is trainer Jose Martin's son and assistant.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, it does get you a little upset and, you know, thinking, what do you have to do to get some respect around here? But sometimes the press, you know, is positive and sometimes they're negative, and they see things a lot in black and white. They see things, you know, well, this is the way it is, the time was such and such and the field was such and such. And sometimes they don't measure heart and determination, which my father has and Key Contender has.
I don't have to get near.
Will a victory in the Whitney change that? Well, maybe not. But as Carl Lizza points out, Key Contender can only beat those horses that are entered in the race against him.
And there is a big crowd watching Key Contender, the 7-year-old, being saddled for only his 55th career start. And that's one of the clues to his durability. At that rate, he's averaging about 10 starts a year. And, Dave, that's like a car with low mileage. It spends a lot of time in the garage. It'll last a while.
But, you know, looking ahead to the Breeders' Cup, they may need a new jockey, because if Cigar stays healthy and he goes to the Breeders' Cup Classic, Jerry Bailey will probably take that mount.
Well, the Whitney Handicap will tell us a lot about the Breeders' Cup coming up, because all of the starters in today's Whitney are Breeders' Cup eligible. In fact, since the inception of the Breeders' Cup, the Whitney has had a big impact on the Breeders' Cup. In 1984, with legendary jockey Angel Cordero aboard, Sluagol Gold easily handled a very small field here in the Whitney, which set them up just perfectly for the inaugural $3 million Classic. The California fans sent Sluagol Gold off the favorite in the most eventful Classic in Breeders' Cup history. Gold stayed on the heels of 30-1 shot Wild Again, who held the lead on the rail for most of the race. White-hooded Gate Dancer makes a late charge on the outside, attempting to overtake the leaders.
Here comes Gate Dancer on the outside. They're in the final furlong. Wild Again desperately holding on to the lead. Sluagol Gold is right there in between horses. Gate Dancer on the outside. What a finish. Wild Again, Gate Dancer, Sluagol Gold in between them. Those three in a dramatic finish. And here's the wire. Wild Again does it.
After a lengthy inquiry, Gate Dancer was disqualified and placed third, moving Sluagol Gold up to second. The $360,000 supplemental entry Wild Again slipped through with a clean trip to win. stunning the record crowd at Hollywood Park in the 1984 running of thoroughbred racing's richest event.
The current favorite is number 4, Unaccounted For. This is a town where everybody has an opinion, and a lot of them are picking this one. We'll be back with more from Saratoga after this. Upstate New York today at Saratoga Race Course for the Whitney Handicap. Well, the first meet back in 1864 was only 4 days long, and 10,000 racing fans were here for the opening day on that one. Today we have a crowd of, probably over 20,000, even with the tough weather. And back in the paddock, they're getting ready to saddle. Hey, tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, it's the American Bowl live from Tokyo. It's John Elway and the Broncos versus Steve Young and the 49ers, right here on ESPN. Well, you know, Jerry Bailey has ridden 9 of the horses in this race, and he rode 3 of them the last time out, so he really had his pick. And Charles Canty visited with Jerry earlier this afternoon.
Well, no one will ever forget Jerry Bailey's stunning $270 upset aboard our Kong in the 1993 Breeders' Cup, and I doubt Jerry Bailey will ever forget the year 1995. Jerry, you're leading rider here at Saratoga, and on Monday you'll be inducted into Racing's Hall of Fame. What a time for you.
It's been a wonderful year, Charles. It started out a little rocky with the controversy with the jockeys and the TRA, but it's been wonderful ever since.
Well, congratulations. It's well-deserved, and you got a chance to notch your belt one more time before Monday. You're aboard favorite Key Contender today. You go back a long way with this 7-year-old.
Geez, longer than I care to count. Mac Miller had him with Rokeby Stable. He loves Saratoga. He loves the wet, and it looks like it might rain, so I might be in good shape today.
Well, win or lose aboard Key Contender, I think your mount for the Breeders' Cup Classic is probably pretty well set. The good Lord willing, with Cigar, who's on his way to Horse of the Year honors.
Yes, he's resting at Belmont right now as we speak. As long as he stays healthy, he will be my mount, and the way he's been running, he'll be a good mount.
You know, the way things are going for Jerry Bailey, it'll all go well. Congratulations on everything, Jerry. Jerry Bailey on top of the world, and right now we go back to Dave Johnson, who's on top of the podium.
And, you know, this is the racetrack back in 1919 where Man of War lost the only race of his career. He won 20 out of 21, but he lost one here to a horse called Upset. Will we have an upset today? Stay with us at Saratoga. The horses are making their way from the beautiful saddling ring in the back through a tunnel and out onto the main racetrack here at Saratoga. And the track is still labeled fast. A couple of these horses are in the future book odds for the mile and a quarter, $3 million Breeders' Cup Classic. Key Contender at 50, Unaccounted For at 60, and Our Emblem at 100 to 1. Of course, odds could change dramatically if one of those 3 horses win big this afternoon. And a couple horses who we expect to see next week in the Pacific Classic. Concern is right now at 4.5 to 1. Of course, he won the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. Soul of the Matter, who came back big this year, is 8 to 1. And Tinner's Way, trained by Bobby Frankel. Bobby looking to win that Pacific Classic next weekend for the 4th year in a row. Big crowd on hand trying to get a glimpse of these horses as they move onto the racetrack for the post-parade. This track, let's take a look now at the horses for the post-parade for the Whitney. And the number 1 horse is Itaka, who races very well when he's in shape, and he's in shape very nicely right now. And Eddie Maple, who was the leading rider here in 1975, is having a terrific year this year. Got the rail, got in light at 110 pounds, and he's got a chance as a price, too. Number 2 is Siberian Summer. Now, after 8 distance turf races, he goes to the dirt, but most of his $500,000 was earned on the main track. Look for this horse to jump right to the lead this afternoon, and as Tom told us earlier, his trainer, Itaka, is having a real good meet. Number 3, L'Carriere. Boy, his breeding line says victory at Saratoga. His father, Cardinasca, won the Jim Dandy and the Travers and was second in the Whitney, and his grandsire, Stardinasca, won the Whitney back in 1979. There's a New York bred, was owned and bred by Virginia Payson. And Joe Bravo, who fits this horse as a front runner, comes in from New Jersey to ride this afternoon. And Charles, he's had a race over the track and a winning one.
Well, here's a horse who's had a race over the track last year that was a winning one, a major stakes race. That's Unaccounted For. He won the Jim Dandy last year, upsetting Tabasco Cat. Here you see him wearing those blinkers that have made such a radical difference in his performance. The key with him today is if he keeps on going in the same direction. If he pulls another performance like that, we will be looking at Breeders' Cup for him. Certainly his connections are all Breeders' Cup eligible. Scotty Schulhofer, his trainer, has won 2, and he's ridden by Pat Day, who's won 8 Breeders' Cup.
And Charles, you might mention that Amathos is one of the horses who was purchased out of a Keelan sale. That's what the K and the gavel mean there.
And he now is the property of Sheikh Mohammed, who has won 3 Breeders' Cup races himself. Jose Santos has won 5, and Belmont, of course, has accounted for 2. And Amathos has been a bit improved this year. He's wearing blinkers, too, for the first time. Then we have Key Contender, the horse we've been talking about, the old veteran. And he's wearing 2 tongue ties, which is a bit unusual. And there you see a figure-8 noseband on him. His trainer, Jose Martin, says that that has had a great deal to do with his improved performance. He loves Saratoga.
And next in line is number 7, Silver Fox, a 4-year-old who, as Tom told us, Shane Sellers gets the mount this afternoon. Followed by the 6-year-old, number 8, Federal Funds, making his 106th lifetime start. Low weight in the field, 107 pounds, just 10 wins out of 105 trips to the post. And completing the field, next in line is our emblem, taking the big step into the Grade I company. Mike Smith, who's had 2 winners already on the card this afternoon, rides this full brother to Miner's Mark. Well, now you've met the 9 horses for this afternoon's Whitney Handicap. Let's go to Tom Durkin and find out what to do with them. Tom?
Dish out the winners, presented by DirecTV.
3 possibilities to dish out, and curiously, they were all ridden by Jerry Bailey in their last race. Unaccounted For, who will have Pat Day on today, along with his new set of blinkers. Key Contender, who Bailey rode in a weak field, over a weak field, in the Suburban Handicap, and L'Carriere, who has that best quality of all. He loves to win. Let's recap it, shall we? It'll be Unaccounted For on top, Key Contender, a contender, and L'Carriere at a price.
About 6 minutes to post time. Who do you like in the Whitney Handicap? We'll be back with the wire-to-wire action after this brief timeout. Purchased back in the 1890s by William C. Whitney, his son Harry Payne, and his son, the late C.V. Whitney, had so much to do with American racing, and Saratoga in particular. This race named in honor of the Whitney family. Let's check the odds, brought to you by Autotote. Itaka is up to 12-1. Siberian Summer is at 19. L'Carriere, another speedball at 10. Unaccounted For is 5-2. Amathos is up to 18-1. Key Contender is the co-choice at 5-2 right now. Silver Fox is at 6. Federal Funds, long shot at 40, and our emblem at 3.5-1. A lot of good prices there, so it's time for us to look for a Budweiser long shot. Today's Budweiser long shot is number 7, Silver Fox. Oh, we know he was beaten 3 lengths by Key Contender in the Suburban, but let's take a look at his race before the Suburban. Going 1.25 miles at Belmont Park in late June, this 4-year-old rallied on the turn, and watch here as he draws off by 5, carrying 120 pounds. That's 11 more pounds than today's assignment. Shane Sellers, who gets the mount, knows how to win on this lightly raced son of Pleasant Colony. They teamed up for an off-the-pace tally at Hialeah in April. So we think that the horse with the least earnings in the field will get the biggest check today. Number 7, Silver Fox, today's Budweiser long shot. Well, there's one of the most important guys at the racetrack, and you might not even know his name.
Jim Ciceragos. And if you think back to the Whitney a few years ago, when Theo Rito, a New York bred, a very much of a long shot, was standing in the gate and had quite an unusual incident. And if it weren't for this man right here, Jim Ciceragos, Theo Rito would probably have never even started in the race. As it was, thanks to him, he not only saved of the day, but Fiorito won the race. Watch him now. As
1981.
Fiorito, he breaks through the gate. Watch Jim hang on to him. Look, falls out of the gate, does not let go. What a save. What a save.
And Charles, remember, this was a real long shot. And he went on to win it and become the only New York bred to win this race.
All right, and then Unaccounted For, of course, is saddled by Scotty Schulhofer, who won this race last year with Colonial Affair, only to see him get hurt before the Breeders' Cup Classic. Certainly he's hoping for Unaccounted For to move up with these blinkers on, and we asked Scotty about the change of equipment, and he said that it made this horse more focused and kept his mind on what he was doing. It sure has. He won by daylight the only time out. The key is, can he do it again today?
There's Silver Fox, the Bud Longshot, moving into line as we go to the top of the stands for the call of the Whitney 1995. Here's Tom Durkin.
Silver Fox taking his spot in the starting gate. To his outside will be Federal Funds, and just at the last flash of the tote, the favorite here will indeed be Key Contender at 2-1. Unaccounted For the second choice here, and our emblem, the other main contender. He's in, ready for a start for the 68th running of the Whitney.
Not ready on the outside yet.
They'll settle down, and they're off. Siberian Summer is sent out for the lead. Itaka flashing speed toward the inside, but Siberian Summer is out to get the early lead. Here comes L'Carriere now coming on through, and Key Contender caught 3 wide. He was jostled about going into the turn. Itaka saving ground toward the inside. Amathos is in between horses, had to steady a bit, now running in 5th. Amathos had to check there. Then it's Unaccounted For who gets a position on the inside in the early going, about 6 lengths from the front runners. Our emblem is rating today just to the outside of Unaccounted For. The 2 trailers will be Silver Fox and Federal Funds. 23-3 for the opening quarter. They begin their run down the backstretch with Siberian Summer holding a short lead. L'Carriere pressing all the way. 2 lengths back, and Key Contender in a contending position with 5 furlongs to go. Down inside, it's Itaka. Amathos is taken to the outside for a clear aim. Pat Day still patient with Unaccounted For, 5 lengths behind. Our emblem is right next to him. Then Federal Funds and Silver Fox. And there's less than a half mile remaining. They ran a half in a legitimate 47 2/5 seconds. Around the far turn here at Saratoga, and L'Carriere forges to the lead. It's L'Carriere in front. Key Contender is right there. Siberian Summer working harder to keep up now. On the far outside, here comes our emblem, who's sweeping 4 wide. After the lead, Amathos, Unaccounted For, is in behind a wall of horses. Silver Fox coming on the far outside. They're coming down toward the final furlong, and here's our emblem. Our emblem now has taken the lead. L'Carriere and Unaccounted For is coming hard down the center of the track. Itaka's coming up the rail. Unaccounted For taking the lead at the 16th pole. Our emblem gave it up, and it is Unaccounted For the winner. L'Carriere was second. It's a photo for third between Silver Fox and Itaka. And Pat Day, the patient one, Pat wait all day, as some people call him, waited for the right moment, lingering in mid-pack, and then turned Unaccounted For loose to win the 68th running of the Whitney.
A tremendous burst of speed about the 16th pole as Pat Day finally unleashed that tremendous charge. Second choice at 5-2 on the tote board. Scotty Schulhofer must have had some anxious moments at the top of the stretch, but if you wagered on Unaccounted For, you're going to enjoy this quick replay as we watch the last quarter mile, Charlesy.
Well, the answer is with the blinkers, yes, they do help. He really wasn't showing as much speed as you might have. You see him on the far left of your screen. He just angled out. He's about 5 or 6 wide there, sort of alone, and he's making his move now. L'Carriere had hung on gamely. Our emblem had run up to make a move along the rail. Itaka was trying, but Unaccounted For really comes strong, and certainly looks as though 1.25 miles in the Breeders' Cup Classic will be no problem for him as long as he's wearing his blinkers.
He won by 9.5 lengths last out, carrying 120 pounds, 6 pounds less today. And Scotty Schulhofer, who saddled Colonial Affair to win this race last year, gets to come back to the winner's circle again with Unaccounted For. We'll be right back. Pat Day has won this race 3 times before on 3 of the most popular horses ever to race in New York. Easy Goer, Java Gold, and Personal Ensign. and he returns to the winner's circle this afternoon with Unaccounted For, who didn't look like a winner at the 8th pole, but certainly looks like one now. He's in the winner's circle. He's shaking his head yes. So is Pat Day, and we're going to find out how he won it.
Okay, Pat, here we go. Scott.
On the far turn, Pat Day riding number 4, Unaccounted For. He's about the 5th one back on the inside, just inside our emblem. Our emblem, the horse with the red cap and the black silks. A little traffic here for Pat Day for Unaccounted For, but Pat Day really doesn't get to riding most of his horses until they make the turn into the stretch. He had a little traffic, but he really didn't have any trouble. He'll switch into the outside here. Now, the horse with the black silks and the red cap is our emblem. Here's where the Breeders' Cup races are going to be decided. Our emblem absolutely chucks it in the last 8th. I am sure that Suge McGee is now thinking Breeders' Cup sprint for our emblem, and full of run is Unaccounted For. They ran legitimate fractions here, and Unaccounted For probably ran his last 1/8 of a mile in about 12 seconds and getting stronger all the way. He is Breeders' Cup Classic bound with a shot.
Owned by the Morven Stud Farm of John Clugie, trained by Scotty Schulhofer, taking this race for the 2nd year in a row, and Pat Day scores in the Whitney for the 4th time. It's Unaccounted For, a 4-year-old son of private account, winning it and paying $7.30 to win, $5 to place, and $3.70 to show. L'Carriere for the place at $9.60 and $7.10. Good prices there. The Bud Long Shot, Silver Fox was 3rd at $5.10 to show, and the 4-3 Exacta, an even $63. That's the official finish of the Whitney, but we've got much more after this. And here's the happy winners in the winner's circle. Charles C. waiting to talk to them. Let's take a quick look at the full order. Unaccounted For on top. L'Carriere was 2nd. Silver Fox, the Bud Long Shot, finished 3rd. Itaka up the rail to finish 4th. Our emblem faded to 5th. Key Contender was 6th. Amathos, Siberian Summer, and Federal Funds was 9th and last. Charles C.
All right, as you said, we've got the happy winners right here. Scotty Schulhofer, who trains the horse, and Russell Jones, who's a racing manager for Morven Stud. And we're going to take a look at the race here in a minute. But, Scotty, there were 2 key factors here. One was a lot of patience. You all waited with this colt, and the other were the blinkers. How did the 2 of them play together?
Well, we put blinkers on him, kind of get him a little bit more focused after his 2nd race this year, and seemed to work real well. And today he came away from the gate very relaxed, and he wasn't as speedy as he has been, and which was good. And Pat placed him in real good, and he was very patient and waited till the right time. And when he asked him, he gave him everything. So it was good.
Well, when we get to the finish of the race, Russell, let me ask you this. As racing manager, you had a lot of decisions to make. Here was a colt who looked like a world beater last year, but never quite could give it to you the way you wanted. It must have been hard to wait this long.
Well, we gave him a little time off during the winter, and then we took our time getting him back, because Scotty and I decided this spring that 2 races in the spring were worth 1 in the fall, and we better go for the ones in the fall rather than the ones in the spring. So this is the beginning of the fall for us.
All right, now I've got you both together. What are your plans from here to the Breeders' Cup Classic?
Well, we'll probably have to go back to Belmont, and you got the Turf Cup up here, the Saratoga Cup.
The Saratoga Cup, yeah, that's a possibility.
There's a possibility, but
too early to say, isn't it?
It's early because we got to think about cigar.
That's a lot to think about. But while you 2 are deciding on this, we'll go up to Dave and Pat Day and take a look at the race.
Well, Pat's just wiped his face off, and now he can take a look at the monitor as we watch this race. Had you ridden this horse ever before?
I had worked him a couple of times, Dave, but I had never ridden him in a race, no.
Okay, so let's take a look now. He's breaking from post position number 4, and what was your intention right at the start?
Well, it appeared that there was a couple of horses in there that would have some speed, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't anticipate being last right here. You know, I thought I would be up in the first flight. It looked like this colt, you know, in his previous races, his better races, he'd been up fairly close to the lead, but he broke in a bit of a tangle, got squeezed immediately, and there I find myself in behind the, you know, wall of horses. But he was content to be there. He took me up into contention, and, you know, he really done everything absolutely proper from there on.
And at what point in the race did you sort of ask him for any speed at all?
I didn't ask him for anything until we come off the turn, Dave. I was right in behind Key Contender, was following him all the way. Run up on him at the head of the stretch. Our emblem had gone on by us on the outside. And when they kicked on by us...
Now, right here, you're 6th going down the backstretch.
Yeah, I'm right inside of Amethyst and right in behind Key Contender with absolutely nowhere to go, actually. I mean, you know, I'd had to knock somebody down to get out of there, and it was way too early to try to do something that drastic anyway. So we were content to sit in there, as I said. Our emblem is right in behind us there now on the outside. And as we go on around the turn, you'll see him go on by me, and I'm still there, still, you know, trying to secure some racing room.
But saving ground at the same time.
I was a couple off the fence. I wasn't right on top of it, but I wasn't extremely wide either. We had really had a very pleasurable trip. Right here now, them horses are kicking on. I asked him to get in gear just to hold my position, staying behind Key Contender. I didn't want to lose any more ground on him than I had to. And right here, the horses to the outside of me started to fade back. I was able to ease into the outside right here. Now, right here,
White cap, far left of the screen, right?
Yes, second from the outside, and here he comes.
And at this point, you're going to pass the Phipps horse and sail for home.
Yes, sir. And to be quite frank with you, he was not putting forth 100% right here. As you can see, his ears are kind of up and looking, and he was very much within himself coming to the wire.
So at 1.25 miles, the Breeders' Cup Classic wouldn't be a stretch.
I don't think so. Certainly not the way that he ran today. You know, he was very relaxed early, content to sit in behind horses, and had a good turn of foot when we turned for home. So 1.25 miles, I don't think would be any problem at all for him.
Well, this horse was content to sit behind horses. Here's one of the greatest guys ever to sit on a horse in a race ever. Congratulations, Pat Day, who just won the Whitney with Unaccounted For, and we'll be back with more from Saratoga after this. Welcome back to Racing to the Breeders' Cup and our live coverage of the Whitney from Saratoga. Let's take a look at the Wittenauer splits from this 1 1/8 contest. And we'll see that the times are legitimate right straight through with a very fast last 1/8 of a mile. And, of course, that was, as we saw, the fastest for Unaccounted For, who blew by our emblem to get the money and the trophy. And speaking of the trophy, it was presented by Mrs. C.V. Whitney. Mary Lou presenting the big bottle of Moet there to Pat Day and the connections of Unaccounted For. Racing to the Breeders' Cup continues, and next week we're going to be on the West Coast for the Pacific Classic. Will Bobby Frankel win it for the 4th year in a row? We'll find out. We're live at 5 o'clock Eastern next Sunday, a week from tomorrow, August the 13th. Then, after that, well, when we come back here to Saratoga, we've got a doubleheader at the end of the month with lots of action at Saratoga Race Course, and we'll also be checking the action from Arlington. Right now, let's check in with Charles Cicanti.
Well, right now I'm with Kenny No, who is president and general manager of the New York Racing Association, and Belmont Park, of course, will be host once again for this year's Breeders' Cup. So, Kenny, you all have had a lot on your plate with the preparations, but frankly, Belmont started looking good a long time before.
Well, we started in April, weather permitting, and we started to do some improvements and getting ready for the Breeders' Cup, and we're doing a lot of work there now, both front side and back side. So there's a lot of preparation, but we've got some people that were there when they had it in 1990, so they pretty well know what to do. I just stand and look around and maybe approve a few things.
Those of us who know you know better than that, but Belmont has never been looking better. What about Saratoga? We've still got a few weeks to go up here, and what's your read on the meet?
Well, I think we, in all honesty, I think we'll be a little off in handle and attendance, and we expected that because we're running 9 races against 10. I felt that it was better that we have the quality of racing rather than string it out. So, you know, numbers is not always the big answer. I think when you have quality racing, and I believe we've had that, I think that's what the fans want to see, and that's what we're going to try to do as long as I have anything to say about it.
You're right about that. There's always quality racing here at Saratoga. There's nothing else like Saratoga, and there's no one else like our Tom Durkin.
Abraham Lincoln was president of the United States when this old course was built over 130 years ago. That was before the light bulb, before air conditioning, before all of those conveniences that you're familiar with nowadays. But Saratoga, over the decades, changed with the times. Sorta. was no such thing as an infield message board back in the 19th century when Honest Abe was prez, so here's how the crowd was informed of scratches and jockey changes. Cranked up on a contraption that looks like a guillotine from the 18th century. It's the 20th century now, and hey, at Saratoga, we don't really embrace change, so we keep it around. In 1864, how did anyone know when the next race was nearing? Easy. Just ring a bell. And to this day, 15 minutes before every race, we ring that bell 7 times. Why 7 times, you ask? Because we've always done it that way. Okay? Electronic fans will love this. There were races at Saratoga decades before public address systems. Saratoga was 80 years old before these state-of-the-art amplifiers were installed. How old are these Tubi wonders? So old, they were made in America, and they still work great. TV arrived here 100 years after the place was built. Where to put the cameras? Easy. Just walk through the steward stand and open up a trap door, and then descend to a platform to get to your 1990s camera. You might be wondering about plumbing. I mean, where did people go in 1864? Do they have outhouses or what? Well, I don't know. But when I'm in the press box, I personally go in the 115 room for gentlemen. So named because it took 115 years for the gentlemen of the press to get the plumbing. As winner's circles go, the winner's circle at Saratoga is a modest one. No floral arrangements, no architectural enclosures. It's just a circle, which is faithfully renovated after every race in the time-honored tradition. Change comes slowly to Saratoga. Thank goodness. Racing fans enjoy the sport much as their great-great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers did in a century past on summery afternoons, picnicking under leafy elms with America's finest thoroughbreds stepping right in their midst. At Saratoga, a step back in time.
Well, we'll step ahead in time and look forward specifically to Breeders' Cup prospects here at the Spa after we take this time out. Welcome back to Saratoga, where Unaccounted For took the Whitney this afternoon on his way to the Breeders' Cup. And speaking of the Breeders' Cup, let's take a look at our television schedule. After next weekend, when we'll be at Del Mar, then at the end of the month, we'll be here for the Saratoga Cup and the Beverly D and the Hopeful and the Arlington Million the next day. Super Saturday, which gives us so many favorites for the Breeders' Cup, and the Super Derby for 3-year-olds, and then we'll wrap it all up the weekend before the Breeders' Cup, and we'll be able to bring you up to speed on all of the various horses. But what about the horses here preparing for the Breeders' Cup?
Well, earlier today we told you that Suge McGee, he decided not to run Heavenly Prize and Inside Information, so we went to him earlier and got a little update on their future plans.
Inside Information will run the Ballerina a week from Sunday. She worked here this morning great. And Heavenly Prize will probably run in the John Morris here with maybe a pencil in of the Beverly D. With the drought up here, we haven't been able to train on the grass, so I haven't been able to train her on the grass, and now I'm probably opting more for the Morris and the Beverly D.
Well, the drought is ended, so maybe Suge will be able to get her on the grass. But in the meantime, his first priority is to reverse a frustrating disappointment from last year's distaff.
Last year in the distaff, Heavenly Prize was almost the winner, but it was Leonard Lavin's One Dreamer, trained by Tom Proctor and ridden by Gary Stevens, who, as Tom Durkin said, just ran away and stole this race. Pat Day was aboard Heavenly Prize, coming on at the finish, but just missing in the photo finish. As a 3-year-old, she was named champion 3-year-old filly, but this year, Suge wants to go to the distaff and win it.
He also has a nice 2-year-old colt in Roar, who just broke his maiden, and he's got My Flag, who is yet another daughter of Personal Instinct.
Now, Suge is the second most successful money-wise in terms of training at the Breeders' Cup. D. Wayne Lucas, of course, at the top of the list, and you were over at his barn recently.
I spoke to him this morning, and he said that he is looking at no less than 1 dozen entries in the Breeders' Cup, and maybe as many as 15 or 18. Of course, he's got Timber Country and Thunder Gulch in the Classic. They'll be tough to beat. And Serena Song, you saw her last week. She's amazing. Of course, the 2-year-olds is where he always shines, and he's told me he's looking at multiple entries in the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies, and a whole bunch, is the way he put it to me, in the colts. Honor and Glory is one of those who made his debut here, a most auspicious beginning here at Saratoga this week, and believe me, he is something.
And for those of you who weren't up at the spa, let's take a look. It was July the 27th, a 6-furlong race. Watch the number 6 horse. He'd be out about second last. He hesitated. It's Michael Tabor's colors, pink with the blue and the pink cap, and there goes Honor and Glory, ridden this day by Mike Smith, and he just completely passes the field, finds an opening, and takes command on the backstretch after that tardy beginning. And look at the finish, Charles.
And he just wins going away. And Lucas told me, he said he's got some others he hasn't even started yet that are just as good as this one. So I'm not sure what the limit is on how many horses one trainer can start in a race, but he's going to find out this year.
Now, speaking of another horse who hasn't started, Unbridled Song was supposed to start in the second race today, but he was scratched, Jim Ryerson's horse, so we'll still have to see how good he is.
Becoming the mystery horse, but the horse we know a lot about is Cigar, and he is, of course, the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic and for Horse of the Year honors right now. He's vacationing down at Belmont Park, and he will be coming up in the Woodward, according to Belmont. That will be his next start, possibly the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and then the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Let's get some thoughts from Tom Durkin at the end of this day. Tom?
Well, a little handicapping hint, if you will. It's time to start clipping those press releases and articles in magazines about horses coming over from Europe. There'll be lots of them coming over for the Breeders' Cup. They love Belmont Park. It's a perfect venue for the Europeans. It's only 6 hours away, and especially the turf horses love the turns there. And with Cigar dominating, well, perhaps he'll have a European to complete that exacta. Dave?
Well, 19 Breeders' Cup champions have raced here at Saratoga. We might have seen another one today. Next up on ESPN is live from the VFW with senior golf from Belton, Missouri. And if you're near St. Louis, stop in and see the Fairmount Derby tonight. Here it was Unaccounted For in the Whitney.
Racing to the Breeders' Cup, featuring the 1995 Whitney Handicap, has been brought to you by the Breeders' Cup, racing's $10 million championship. By Buick and your local Buick dealers. Remember Buick, the new symbol for quality in America. By Beechwood Aged Budweiser, it's always been true, this Bud's for you. By Whitnauer Watches, the perfect balance of hand craftsmanship and advanced technology. Whitnauer, the watchmaker's watch. And by Hollywood Park, where great times are a sure bet. Ground transportation provided by Thrifty Car Rental. For reservations at over 850 locations worldwide, call Thrifty at 1-800-4CARS. This has been a Winter Communications Incorporated presentation in association with ESPN.